Hi, welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Sarah Garrett-Gasson here with Dr. Andrew Weil, the director of the Center for Integrative Medicine over at the University of Arizona. Did I get that full title correct?
You got that right.
Okay. Thanks for being here. I know you're extremely busy, and thanks for letting us into your wonderful home up here in the foothills of Tucson. Before I get on to other questions, what is it about Tucson that keeps you here? You could live anywhere. What keeps you here?
You know, my car broke down here over 40 years ago. And it took 6 weeks to get fixed. And it was February of a warm, wet winter. The desert was in full bloom. I fell in love with the natural environment. Never less. So I think primarily it was the desert and the natural environment, which I just felt a great affinity toward.
And do you still have that car?
No, it's long gone.
Well, we have that car to thank, I guess.
Yes, exactly.
I wanted to ask about food, kind of superfoods. A few years ago, it was pomegranates. Then it was, I think we went through a chard phase. Now we're in a kale phase. You're kind of on a kale kick.
Well, I take some credit for the popularity of kale in this country. I am a little dubious about superfoods. I think there's a lot of great foods, and often there's hype behind a lot of these superfoods and interests that are promoting them because they benefit from them. I would have never touched kale as a kid. And the first time I served raw kale in Canada, I thought it was just awful.
How is it prepared? It's
just thrown raw into a salad, and it was the curly blue Scotch kale, which is tough. I began growing kale in my garden when I lived out in Weil, and I grew varieties that were smoother Russian kale, which I liked stir-fried, sautéed. I got to like that. But it wasn't until I began growing that dinosaur kale, the black kale, which is now so popular. Yeah, which does better in the heat here. And then tasting this traditional salad from Tuscany, the secret of which was to let the kale sit for a while in lemon juice and salt and olive oil, and the lemon juice and salt take the bitterness and toughness out of it.
And it kind of breaks it down a little bit.
Yeah, and it's delicious. And I love kale. I mean, I would never have imagined Americans would be eating raw kale, and let alone kids, but there it is. So kale's great. It's got you know, lots of minerals and fiber and protective phytonutrients, but so do a lot of other members of the cabbage family.
It's an exciting family, the cabbage family.
But it can be very scary to people who don't know how to prepare those vegetables right, because if you overcook them at all, they get nasty tastes and odors. So the trick is cooking them just right. Yeah,
I think we all remember that sort of, there's a fine line.
Or greens are very popular in the South, collard greens and so forth, but they're cooked forever, often for several hours with a lot of bacon fat, and that's not, to me, the optimal way to prepare them.
So organic food and free-range meats and all these things aren't available everywhere. I know that they're really good for you. You're a huge advocate of them. But if I go to the supermarket in my neighborhood, I'm going to find something different than if I go across town. So how do we kind of democratize accessibility?
Well, first of all, it's become more accessible and available as organic agriculture has become on a bigger scale. And I think as consumer demand increases for it, we can expect to see it become more available and cheaper. Recognizing that organic produce is often out of reach of many people, I try to encourage people to learn which crops are most likely to be contaminated with agrochemicals. And the best resource for that is the Environmental Working Group's website. It's ewg.org in Washington, D.C., and they have a list of the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. So if you want to buy something on the Dirty Dozen list, like strawberries or peaches or green beans, I would say either get organic versions or don't buy them. But on the other hand, when you're dealing with things on the Clean 15 list, like asparagus, avocados, it doesn't matter. So there's no point in spending extra money on organic. The other thing to realize is that small growers can't afford to get USDA organic certification. But many small growers will assure buyers that they don't use pesticides. So at farmers markets, at local markets, often you can find local growers selling pesticide-free produce, which doesn't have organic certification, but just fine.
And Tucson is really fortunate because we have the Tucson Community Food Bank of Southern Arizona doing a lot of local community markets.
Yep, and that is a relatively recent change in my experience in Tucson. It's great.
What food tastes like home to you?
I guess my mother used to make a great lentil soup with hot dogs in it. I now make it with with veggie dogs, but that's very comforting to me. Pizza is a great comfort food for me, but I like really good pizza, so I'm picky about what I eat.
Do you eat frozen pizza?
No.
No, not ever.
No, never. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. I have bought frozen pizzas from Trader Joe's, and I doctor them up. But that's a poor substitute for, fresh pizza.
Of course. Well, thank you very much for taking time out of your day to speak with us.
I enjoyed it.
Really appreciate it, and I hope you'll come back sometime.
I would love to.
You'll let us come back,
okay.
since we came to you.
Sure.
Actually.
Okay.
Thanks very much for being with us. I'm Sarah Garrett-Gasson for Newsmakers. We'll see you next time.